Voyager. Voyager.
There's coffee in that nebula.
Make it yourself.
Here's to the finest crew in Starfleet. Engage.
Watch your back, Jean-Luc. I'm Captain Janeway of the USS Voyager. Captain Janeway of the USS Voyager. Captain.
Welcome to the Greatest Generation Voyager for the last time ever. I'm Ben Harrison.
I'm Adam Pranica. To the podcast, we could call it.
Yeah, this is our Voyager wrap-up. I meant to go back and listen to our wrap-up of TNG and our wrap-up of DS9 to prepare for this, but I didn't do that.
I went back and re-listened to our entire run of Star Trek Voyager.
Oh, good.
But I didn't go back and listen to those previous series wrap-ups, so I'm just as useless as you are.
Uh-huh. But the series will be fresher in your mind.
It will be. Yeah, it is. Very fresh.
A lot of this Voyager stuff was recorded when I was deliriously low on sleep. So,
How much of the Voyager run was droned, do you think?
The boy.
I don't know. I mean, it was a sillier run than the Deep Space Nine run, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
I think partly just because Deep Space Nine is a darker, more brooding show, so...
Oh, we had our fun on DS9.
We did. I mean, Voyager doesn't have a fuck Bokai.
Surely does not.
You got room on your team for a switch-hitting third baseman with good power?
First question, Ben. This one comes in from Cut for Time. Who is Voyager's fuck Bokai?
Man, who indeed?
It's gotta be Irish bartender, right?
I guess so, yeah.
Because he's not real. He's a hollow man.
He is a hollow man. He's a stick man. Stick hollow man.
Sure.
Fuck Bokai, definitely a stick hollow man.
Yeah.
But he's not a hollow man. He's an imaginary man.
Sure. No, I mean, Buck Bokai, real man as hollow man.
Right.
Fuck Bokai, real man as hollow man as greatest gen joke.
It's subtle.
So that goes.
Is my neck, my back, my reproductive sac the closest we got to fuck Bokai
I think it is.
in Voyager?
And FODs out there are starting to hear kind of what the format of this episode is going to be. Great social media manager Rob Adler got out into those social media streets and solicited a bunch of prompts and questions from our audience, and a bunch of them came in. We're going to be reviewing those over the course of the episode. Also have some meaningful statistics.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of other fun surprises, Ben.
We may even give out our Mount Nuckmores and Mount Armises over the course of this experience. But this is just, looking back over the entire series now that we have completed our rewatch. I think we should get right into it. What do you say? Let's not do a big long marathon.
No, forget it. It is the retrospective episode of Star Trek Voyager, the television series. And this is the only one we're going to do. Episode 1 of that.
Revert course.
Unless you've got something a little bigger in your torpedo tubes, I'm not turning around.
Before we start answering listener questions, I did want to talk about the ending and the themes of the ending and what we liked and what we didn't like about the way they chose to wrap the series up. I think a big unresolved theme for me was what will happen to the Maquis and Seven when they return. Like, they sort of resolve the Neelix question, like, what is Neelix even going to fucking do when they get to Earth, by just writing him off the show a couple episodes before. But there's this huge question in my mind at the end of all of this, like, how does life look for a Chakotay or a BLT now that they're back? And, we don't get any of the, like, people being reunited with their Tom's Mervins or their mom and dad in Harry Kim's case, or their admiral father in Tom Paris's case at the end of the finale. So I thought we should talk about that a little bit at at the very least here on this wrap-up episode.
Just hearing you describe what we got versus maybe what we had hoped to see made me think about just how much of an investment was made in so many characters' post-return lives. Like, this was often a topic of conversation had among many of the main characters, and it seems very unfair to get so much buildup to something that we never experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thrust of my feelings about it, is that if you weren't going to pay that off, why burn all those cycles on all of those intimate conversations had in so many places about what you hope will happen, what you think will happen, what your fears are once you get there. I mean, for so many characters on the show, the return home was going to be a mystery and maybe even something to fear.
I can't remember which writer it was, but one of the writers on the finale, I read something where he was speculating, like, did we do an All Good Things? Was this just another All Good Things? And I don't think that it's quite just another All Good Things, but it does borrow a lot from All Good Things in the, like, future version of Janeway, trying to put things right.
What an awful question to ask if you're the creator of a thing, of a thing in general, and specifically a Star Trek thing. Why would you even invite the comparison?
So here's my spicy alternate ending idea for Voyager. What if there had been a scenario that they built up where the ship was like, it's like the ship gets destroyed or the ship goes home are the two sides of the binary. Like, something is going to happen, and if certain conditions are satisfied, the ship goes home, and if they are not, the ship is destroyed.
I've been living my entire career under this threat.
So the cost to prevent ship destruction is a large portion of the crew basically going on a suicide mission or leaving in a way that is even higher risk. And I think it would have been an interesting way to explore the themes of, like, commitment to ideology. Like, the Maquis, by and large, left Starfleet to go be terrorists. Like, what about their personalities drove them to, like, committing to a much more extreme existence for the rest of their lives? And like, would that come back into play in a scenario like this? Like, we might not have a great future to look forward to when we do get home anyways, so we'll take this risk on behalf of everyone else because we're wired like that. Would some of them chicken out and not?
Well, I tell you what, Janeway would never allow it to happen unless she were going to lead such a mission.
Sure.
So in absorbing this theory, I want to ask you, what if Janeway died at the end of the series, leading a group of folks as you've described? Does that not enshrine her maybe at the top of the mountain of great Starfleet captains, given how little they ended up using her? And I'm setting aside the Star Trek Prodigy aspect of it, but in the decades that followed Voyager up until New Star Trek, I mean, she was a cameo.
Right.
And that was it. I suppose that removes a lot of books out of the bookstores, but
right.
I don't know. I asked a similar question about Neelix. Like, wouldn't you rather have killed him?
Right.
If that was going to be his ending. I do really like your idea, Ben, like the idea that it's a greater sacrifice, but the sacrifice we get is a future Janeway willing to die, knowing that her timeline will be undone if there's mission success anyway. Do you feel like that's a hollow sacrifice then?
Yeah, like it's Janeway that's willing to die to make things right, but Janeway lives in the end anyways. They get to have their cake and eat it too in the writer's room. And what a fucking controversy it would have been if they'd ended the series with Janeway making some grand self-sacrifice to get everyone home. And alternately, just the Maquis or some subset of the Maquis or Chakotay making some grand self-sacrifice. Like, I think that a very modern TV idea that everything has to have these, like, huge operatic themes and we have to like be able to understand characters in those terms. And I think that one thing I like about the 90s era of television is even though the shows like maybe have simpler stories, like I think the characters get to be a little bit more three-dimensional because they don't have to just be like a motif that is personified.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought that would have been an interesting place to go. Another idea I had was like, what if they got home in like season 7, episode 15, and a bunch of the rest of the story is about reintegrating, about answering questions about what happened, about, I don't know, maybe you could have a lost, we have to go back moment.
Well, why not both of those things, Ben?
Yeah,
Say a Voyager with Chakotay in command returns through the hull, and the last 6 episodes are what happened.
Yeah.
And it's a crew grappling with the grief of their lost friends and family that had to sacrifice to stay behind, the grief of a crew about their fallen captain.
Why did that have to happen to Naomi Wildman?
Yeah, you joke, but I'm sure a lot of the Admiralty would have a question like, why did you do it that way?
Yeah.
And the idea of a person having to answer for making an impossible decision, and one that affects them so deeply and in many cases like emotionally, I think that would be really powerful TV, but maybe the sort of TV that doesn't get made in this time period. Maybe it's too hard to look at this through past lenses and too easy to look at it through modern television lenses, you know?
All that being said, I think it is a great 7 seasons that just has a bit of a bummer finale, and like the number of TV shows whose last episodes aren't quite up to par relative to the series that preceded them is enormously high. It is a very tricky thing to tie up 7 seasons and 150 some odd episodes or whatever.
I wonder if in a weird way, just because the track record of series finales is what it has become over the years, do you think the stakes aren't as high as we might assume they are, given that if it works, great, I still don't have a job after that. If it doesn't work, we tried as much as we ever did, and it didn't work, and I still don't have a job after that. Like, I wonder if there's some sort of weird thinking about it in that way, because I'm not talking about specifically about Star Trek even, but just generally on TV. In that series finale, it seems so difficult to stick that landing. I've got to wonder if part of it is just you don't get more time for a series finale. You get just as much time as you ever got. So maybe it's like, fuck us. Like, why are our expectations so much higher for something that only ever has the same amount of resources to create?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Like the papers that I was turning in second semester senior year were not my best work. And I think that the teachers were willing to forgive that because they know what's up, you know? They know everybody has one foot out the door.
Should we be more forgiving teachers? That's the question I'm rolling around in my mind right now.
Our course is locked in. Good. Listen to me very carefully, because I'm only going to say this once.
Ben, speaking of this finale, statistic for you. Star Trek Voyager debuted to 21.3 million viewers.
Wow.
Any guesses how many viewers saw the series finale?
21.2.
Just a little high with that. 5.5
Dang.
million viewers.
They really bled over the course of the series.
How would you explain that? I think that happens with every show. People are excited to see the new thing, and 7 years later, you're going to lose some viewers. I mean, that happens everywhere except Star Trek podcasts. Our hockey stick continues in the upward direction.
Thank you for calling it a hockey stick and not something else, because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
I imagine like Lost and The Sopranos and shows that are really like zeitgeisty like that. Maybe it goes the other way. Like you get I remember like when Seinfeld was in its last season, like the evening news, like the local evening news would have stories about it's about to be the last season of Seinfeld. Like it was such a huge deal.
Imagine getting that kind of free press. Incredible.
I know. No local evening news has ever done anything about the Greatest Generation. You know, to their detriment, I think. I think this is a big part of why like newspapers and news organizations in general are suffering in our modern America is not enough Greatest Gen coverage for the people's liking, you know?
I don't think it's their fault. I think we just need to do something newsworthy. I say as I put on Joker makeup.
I wonder how that played into that like morale of the writer's room, morale of the production staff. If not that many people are even watching, like another reason to ask yourself, how hard are we even going to try on this thing?
I mean, to compare it to podcasting again, how many folks have you ever had the conversation with about how to do a podcast, gave theirs up after 6 weeks because not enough people in their mind were listening?
Right. Not enough people in my mind are listening to The Greatest Generation, and it's a ton of work, and I think we should probably quit.
We edit that part out at the beginning of every episode, but
yeah, but leave this bit leave in, Wynde, because
okay.
People will be interested to hear that is always on the table every time we step up to the microphones.
Ben, I have a few more statistics here to share that I think you'll be interested in. You and so many FODs out there wanted us to do some sort of academic count of the many things that didn't quite add up over the course of the show. Things like the torpedo continuity. Many FODs asked a question about what we thought of the initial complement of torpedoes versus how many we saw fired during the series.
Yeah.
And then how many we imagined would be remaining.
Did you go back through and also rewatch the entire series when you were re-listening to all of our records?
I did. Ben, you might remember 38 torpedoes were the total number of torpedoes kept on Voyager when it made its journey to the Delta Quadrant. Of its 38, how many do you believe were shot over the course of the series?
They were firing full spreads right up to the very end of the series. So I'm gonna guess that they just used them all up. I'm gonna say they had 38. They fired all 38.
Ben, you're correct. They did shoot all 38, but in total they shot 123 photon torpedoes on Star Trek Voyager. I would cite my sources for all of these statistics. However, they came from a number of different places, and I was too busy watching old episodes of Star Trek Voyager to note all of them. So apologies to all of the folks who actually did the work here that I then stole for use here. You know who you are, and we appreciate you. Ben, interesting thing about the number 123. Because Harry Kim copulated with 123 distinct alien species.
Wow.
Over the course of this show.
It's Voyager's 47, you know? Like, it's a number that just kind of keeps popping up. Who knows why?
123 minutes, the average amount of fornication time.
Wow. All right.
That Harry Kim spent with each one.
Hell yeah, Harry Kim.
Something about it reminds me of being in the womb. Get up, Harry.
Who are you?
Harry Kim. Parents must be very proud.
Who are you?
They come as a pair.
Who are you?
Harry Kim. Who else is she supposed to get chummy with? Harry Kim. And your mom? Very proud.
Who are you?
Harry Kim. I lasted 22 minutes. And your mom? Very proud. Harry Kim.
Who are you?
Harry Kim.
How many times do you guess Captain Janeway ordered self-destruct on Voyager? It sure did feel like a lot of times, right?
Man, I think that they must have done it about once a season on TNG. So I'm wondering if Voyager was more or less than that. I'm going to go a little less. I'm going to go 5 self-destructs.
You're really close. Here's the thing. Janeway only ordered self-destruct 3 times.
Okay.
One of those 3 times was botched, like she was unable to do it because the computer would not accept the order. The rest were threats. Didn't she threat all the time to blow up the ship? I think that's the thing that sticks in your mind, is how willing she was to do it.
Right. Yeah. She was all talk, though. All hat, no self-destruct. Cattle.
Yeah. I think her reputation is one of a hair trigger self-destructor.
Yeah.
Without maybe going all the way through it.
She, I feel like, had a ship that got invaded so much more than so many of the other Starfleet captains we are so fond of talking about. Like, I think that the image of a bunch of bad guys marching down the hallways of Voyager, like having already taken over Voyager when the episode starts, or viruses taking over Voyager, that feels like such a big part of this series in particular, is how vulnerable the ship was made to feel over and over again.
152 crew people was the total crew complement on Voyager when it left for its mission. Ben, how many people died?
Well, I feel like a ton die in the Caretaker parts 1 and 2 on both ships. Do they make it home with like 120? I'm going to say they get back with 120.
137 is what I
Okay.
found, which means 15 crew people died.
Yeah.
But I guess you made a crew person with Naomi Wildman.
Mm-hmm.
So you're making news.
And 7 in each, Eb?
Yeah. I guess this is a statistic about people dying and not
Right.
replacements
Yeah.
for the crew complement.
I think that, dozens die in that opening episode. And then when you add the Maquis and your Naomis and your Sevens back in, it's not that bad.
Ben, over under 15 shuttles destroyed on Star Trek Voyager, the series. What do you got?
Oh, man. I'm gonna take the over. I feel like they went through shuttles pretty willy-nilly.
You got it, Ben. 16 shuttles destroyed on Star Trek Voyager. Just an amazing number.
Yeah.
More than 2 a season. Incredible. Ben, those are all of the statistics I was able to find. I thought those were the most interesting ones.
Adam, I have one little block of statistics here. I was reading about all of the different ways that they sped their trip up a little bit. And there were categories such as shortcuts, technology boosts, and then like unsuccessful trip shortening attempts. So there are a number of episodes in which they got, 5,000 or 10,000 extra light years closer to Earth. And I wondered if you could guess how many shortcuts they took, how many technology boosts they got, and then how many unsuccessful attempts they made at shortening their trip.
I want to go in reverse order. How many unsuccessful attempts did they have? I'm going to guess less than 1 per season. I'm going to guess 6.
There were 4 unsuccessful trip shortening attempts. The episode Eye of the Needle, the episode Prime Factors, which was that these people are prime directiving us episode, Future's End, and Inside Man. So I guess the Endgame, the finale, maybe we leave out because that's the final trip shortening attempt. How many technology boosts do you think that they used?
I'm going to guess far less. I'm going to guess 2.
The article I read counted 4. The Voyager Conspiracy, Dark Frontier, Timeless, and Hope and Fear. Do you want to take a guess on how many shortcuts they found?
I don't know, 4?
3. So there was a shortcut in Year of Hell, there was a shortcut in Night, and there was a shortcut in Q2.
That's right. Q was so kind.
Yeah.
to give a little nudge.
A little nudge. I mean, could have done more, as always. I guess like the gift when Kes comes back and gives them a mind push, you could probably count that as a technology assist, right? And then Dragon's Teeth, they found a subspace corridor. I mean, they were a lot closer by the end than they thought they would be at that point, you know? Like, it starts as a 75-year journey, and it was down to, like, I think they had, like, 30 or 40 years left on the trip by the time Endgame came around.
That's like a career
Yeah.
for some people, you know?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
There are 3 things to remember about being a starship captain. Keep your shirt tucked in, go down with the ship, and do it.
All right, Ben, let's get into some questions from FODs. What do you say?
I love that idea.
Now, Ben, we received questions from just about everywhere FODs gather. The Discord, the Facebook, X, Blue Sky, etc., etc. This first one comes from the Discord at drunkshimoda.com. Vitus Ed says, for me, I know that I started out the series really hating Neelix, but by the end I thought the character had grown a lot, especially after Kes left. And now I consider him a great part of the show. I'm wondering if you felt similarly, and maybe it would be a good topic for the retrospective to see how he evolved as the seasons progressed.
I feel very similarly. I mean, I think that he was written to be a very silly character, comic relief character initially. And, well, I think he hung on to that in a lot of ways. He became a lot larger than just joke guy in the course of the show. And I really liked, his final episode where he's on the bridge and questions are being asked about like what does he even do here, and some of his fellow crewmen really hold him down and say, he serves so many roles, it would be impossible for him to just have one station. I mean, it's fun to like take ones off the top rope about like his food being bad, and like the show definitely didn't do anything to disabuse anyone of thinking his food was bad. But like I wind up really liking Neelix toward the end.
I think a lot like a comic who digs a hole early in the set only to like exert themselves getting out of it. I think maybe starting Neelix off the way that he was in this series is like an example of that. It seems incredibly difficult to start off a character with all of these, I'm going to say like social deficiencies, and then redeem him by the end of it. There were so many reasons to dislike Neelix, but I think maybe a lesser actor would not have made him redeemable. I think what Ethan Phillips does with Neelix season after season in digging out of that hole is kind of a minor Star Trek miracle. And I do wish he got a better goodbye than the one that he got. I'll say it again. I wish he died. I think that would have been a spectacular ending for him. But as it was, a character that did get better and better, but he started at the absolute rock bottom for me. A character that I resented, a character that I did not like and was frustrated by, and the many storylines he was a part of. But by the end, he wasn't just like a net neutral to the stories he was involved in. Like, he was a positive aspect and an interesting aspect to those stories. So yeah, I think he could be one of the best examples of Star Trek character redemption. He
Sort of strikes me as having been inspired by the character of Quark. Like, when you're breaking what your new series is going to be, you're looking at the old series, and like, I think TNG inspired like a lot of the roles and character types that they had on DS9, and then DS9 goes on to inspire the roles and character types they have on Voyager. And I mean, I'm just thinking about like costuming for Neelix and Quark, very similar, like very, very loud patterns and colors and stuff. And then you can't make Neelix a a criminal element aboard the ship or it doesn't work, like
Right.
they would just get rid of him if he was Quark in a Voyager context.
Yeah.
So he has to be like in a certain way, it's like the most challenging character to write because he's got to be like there for fun and hijinks the way Quark is, but then they have to round off all of Quark's prickly edges that, make him slightly villainous, put him in that interesting gray area. Like Neelix has to be there for the hijinks, but always the goodest guy, at the end of the day. He's always coming from a good place. He's never self-serving.
It's interesting that in many of the disturbing aspects of Neelix being a companion for a very young person in Cass, in a bad way, in a creepy way, he then ends up becoming a companion to another younger person in a great way.
Right.
In a caretaker way, if you will. And I wonder how intentional that was as a choice.
Yeah, interesting that Naomi Wildman is also from a species that ages at a really accelerated rate.
Yeah, yeah.
But they maybe there was some feeling of we need to launder this character through another juvenile that ages at an accelerated rate.
Ben, related question. I want to make sure I call out from Reasonable Bloke. What did you dislike at the beginning of Voyager that you came to appreciate later? I think it is Neelix for me. I think that's the best example.
Yeah, I think that another one I'll raise is the Chakotay fake Native Americanness stuff that, I think we have talked to death, hopefully, the ways in which that sucked, but I've also, had a few conversations since starting Voyager with members of the Native American community that are like, that does suck, but we also really like Chakotay as a character because honestly, we don't get that many positive representations in media, and it was cool to have something in Star Trek. And I think that both things can be true. There's the things about it that we can decry. I think it got way better over the course of the series. First few interactions he has about his heritage in the show are just yikes. This might as well have been written in the 1830s, the way they are talking to him about it. And then, by the end, they really use the pan flute pretty sparingly and in much better selected scenarios, I thought.
He was the only one with a musical theme, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
Come to think of it.
Yeah.
So he had that going for him.
Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
Ben off of the Discord, Starborn in the Sky asks, maybe a question about the Voyager Battlestar Galactica connection, but do you think Voyager would have been successful if the stakes had been similar to the situation of Galactica with limited resources, truly limited resources, and fewer crew people, or maybe a less crew person and Maquis cohesion?
Interesting. Yeah. Because, I haven't watched all of BSG, but the idea is that they're always on the run. They're always losing people. It's they're always right on the knife edge. So do you take this question to be what if Voyager had been always on the knife edge the entire time? Would it have been a better show?
I think the best we could ask for television of this era is the very special episode. The exhaustion you feel after a Year of Hell storyline. Could you sustain something like that for 26 episodes year after year? You really couldn't.
Yeah.
But, Battlestar Galactica was a bleak show for dozens of episodes, and my appetite for it was not satiated. I could have gone longer with that show. I just don't think that that's a brand that Star Trek goes for, like bleak as a concept.
I wonder if it would have really felt like a Star Trek show at a certain point. I think that's also, hearing you bring up the number of episodes per season, it might be an artifact of this era of television that you couldn't afford to go as hard and as bleak over 26 episodes as you can over 13 or whatever. Like when your episode order is an episode a week for half of the year, like it's a lot to ask people to tune back in to experience like deprivation and stress every single time they watch your show. And, I think about a show like Battlestar Galactica or The Wire or Breaking Bad, any of those shows that kind of like go into the darkness and never come back out. I don't know if they would have worked in, in a 26 episodes a season paradigm,
I think maybe that is what helps to make it work on modern prestige television. In a 10 episode season, I think your appetites are different.
Totally.
For that kind of tone. And it's more palatable if it's 10 or 12 episodes versus 26. Has to be.
We hear all the time people want to go back to longer seasons of shows. And
can you imagine the bitching about that, though? Like, were we to get a 26 episode season, the cries of filler that we'd get every time an episode in a 26 episode season wasn't an absolute fucking banger?
No, you couldn't compete as a television show now. Like if imagine the Star Trek Discovery writers' room being given a 26 episode order. Like there would not, like these are writers that probably wouldn't know what to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
The people that we have working in the industry now are good at writing arcs, you can over 10 episodes of TV write something that is a satisfying story with a beginning, middle, and end. Like, I don't think that we could really realistically keep track of a 26 episode arc that every single episode addresses and moves forward, Like, I know when DS9 did big, long arcs, like they never went more than like 6 or 7 episodes, right?
I wonder if we're trending toward an even tighter shrink in the years ahead. Like,
yeah,
are we going to get fewer episodes per season, even still, with storylines that arc even shorter? That's a movie. Eventually you get to movie.
Yeah, the movies are getting longer and longer.
Mm-hmm.
So like, is there an argument to be made for taking a Killers of the Flower Moon and lopping it into 4 45-minute episodes and just calling it a special miniseries event or something,
Beeps asked a very similar question and more to the point. Do you think Voyager would have been a better or a worse show if the writers had hewed more toward their resource limitations? I think the better or worse is so hard to answer because
it's different for sure.
over 26 episodes, I think it's exhausting. 26 episodes a season. I think early on, it's a better show.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just a mad dash from place to place to get the things that you need to survive. But I don't think that's sustainable over 7 seasons. I think eventually you need to find a cache of those things.
Right.
That gets you onto a different kind of storytelling.
Yeah, I think that this question is one that we jokingly asked all the way through the series. Like, how many of these torpedoes do we even have left? How many of these shuttlecraft do we even have left? And I mean, the show, I think, sort of does itself a disservice not establishing like, oh, we pulled into a port and they have a similar enough kind of warhead that we can replicate our photon torpedo casings and put this type of warhead in it, and we rearmed the ship this week. But that's a little bit more of like a video game storytelling mechanic than a movie or TV show storytelling mechanic. Like, you want your hero in your movie or TV show to be, going through shit, and it gets harder and harder and harder until at the end your hero perseveres. And in a video game, it's sort of like reverse, right? Like you get the bigger gun and the cooler car and the better armor and all that stuff the further you go in, and it enables you to, face bigger, enemies with more XP or whatever.
Does that feel like a kind of show that would be interesting in a Star Trek container?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think XP is like a concept that maps well onto a television show, because, you don't want all your characters walking around on screen with their stats bar hovering above their head, like, oh, Janeway's only got 13 coffee points left, and
But I wonder, in a very specific versus general kind of way, all of our characters need to grow.
Yeah.
All of our characters need to get better through their experiences. We're not talking about like apples on their power bar, but we are talking about a Worf who teaches yoga and stuff.
And grows as a father.
He never takes a parenting class. He would never. Ben, question from Bridge Makes. Assuming the back of the head wasn't an issue.
I can already tell what this question's about.
Like perhaps some sort of paper bag policy could be implemented. Then would you totally murder Tuvix? Or technically allow Tuvok and Neelix to die? So this is an either or. Tuvix or Tuvok and Neelix.
Listen.
You do not get and. As much as you want and, you can't have it.
Listen, as much as I love Tim Russ and as much as I love Ethan Phillips, I think the show is 10 times more interesting if the Tuvix episode just blindsides us and replaces two characters with one character for the rest of the series. And it might be even more interesting if they had saved the dividing them back up again for an episode 2 seasons later, where it becomes clear that Tuvix is going to have to self-sacrifice so that Tuvok can come back and like do a mind meld that Tuvix isn't capable of, or some shit, That's
interesting. The idea of just sitting in it with Tuvix a while, living with that.
Yeah, and then feeling the pain of losing Tuvix after having grown accustomed or tolerating his head.
I think that's a great note, because what you're suggesting is more pain, like more emotional trauma.
Yeah.
Like ultimately, I just want to feel something when I watch a show, and I think you get 2 bites of that apple for one character.
Yeah.
In a really elegant way there, Ben.
It seems to me that it must be some like TV contract thing that prevents them from doing stuff like that, especially in this era. Like,
well, plenty of actors take episodes off or are not written into episodes for a period of time. So
that's true.
I'm sure they could have made that happen if it were a 4-episode arc and the 2 in the middle are without the Tuvok and Neelix characters. I could see that playing.
Yeah. Tell you what, though, that guy probably has his hands full, like doing all the ship's security and, staffing the mess hall and, massaging Naomi Wildman's feet so that she can go to sleep every night. I'm not sure what he did with Naomi Wildman.
There is no way a child of any age wouldn't be horrified by a Tuvix in their company. It would never happen.
Mom, Tuvix's head is under my bed.
I think it's about intent. Like, do Tuvok and Neelix want to be conjoined, or was it accidental that they were conjoined? That it was an accident means that I think you need to do all in your power to separate them, even at the sacrifice of a new character.
Yeah.
I'm with Janeway on this.
Janeway did nothing wrong.
No.
I've got to get that
Latinum? Put your latinum where your mouth is.
I've got to get that
Latinum?
I think we've just struck gold. I'm Captain Janeway of the USS Voyager. Captain Janeway of the USS Voyager.
Our buddy Felipe Sobriero chimes in on Instagram and says, character growth. How did you feel about the main characters of this show in the pilot versus at the series finale? Maybe we could kind of lightning round this one.
Do you want to take it from the top with Janeway?
Yeah, I think I do. Catherine Janeway. Kind of a wonky science nerd up top.
Yeah.
Did great in school, we learned. Like, just kind of the classic dorky captain you want. Leading a science ship, basically. What we get at the end, though, grizzled. War veteran, even, you could consider her. She's been through some shit.
How many times does she kick the Borg's ass over the course of the series? Like 3 or 4.
So many.
Pretty decisive ass whoopings by Janeway.
I think Kirk is always going to be the most exceptional captain because of the sheer brand new things that he had to do, being like the first long-range exploring Star Trek captain there ever was. Like, There was no book or experience of other captains who came before him that like went as far for as long as he did. So,
well, you'll change your tune starting next week, but
but like the only ding against Janeway is that someone else, like no one else has gone as far as her. But the idea of like first contacting every fucking week, encountering threats that want to kill you every other week, like episode after episode, no one did that more than Janeway.
Yeah, and she probably violated the Prime Directive fewer times than Picard did, despite how much more grace and leeway she probably would have gotten when she like submitted her captain's log at the end of their voyage.
I mean, if you're just starting with generic Starfleet captain, and that is basically what you get with Catherine Janeway in episode 1, what you arrive at the end is an enormous leap. I think what you get at the end with Captain Janeway is truly one of the best captains. And I think the greatest leap in character growth in the whole series.
There's coffee in that opportunity to grow.
Chakotay is harder to put your finger on, like where the character growth did and didn't happen. I think that most of his character growth kind of comes in season 1, like going from Maquis to loyal first officer. And then like every time that loyalty is tested, he is kind of unfailingly the right guy for the job, that he was the right pick. And I have no idea if this is true or not. I read somewhere that Robert Beltran was getting paid like a crazy salary by the end because he was sort of dissatisfied with how underwritten his character was, and was basically trying to get them to write him off the show by asking for a fuck you raise. Like he would say like, okay, I'll come back, but you got to pay me this much. And they were like, okay. And he's like, what? Just write me off the fucking show. Okay, well, if you're going to pay me that much.
We talked about it a lot when we were both freelancing. Like, what's the fuck you number?
Yeah.
If it's a job you don't want to do, everyone's got a number.
Yeah.
That's the number you ask for a job you don't want to do.
Never say no without a number.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the Chakotay rule.
Mm-hmm.
Tuvok similarly doesn't change radically. I mean, Vulcans rarely do, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his debilitating mental disease maybe creates a downward arc for his character growth, wouldn't you say?
Sure. BLT, I think, is another interesting case. Like, I feel like grows a lot more than most characters.
Through her relationship with Tom Paris, I think we could probably consider them connected in that way in their growth.
Absolutely. And so much more in control of her faculties and her power by the end in a cool way. Yeah, I also really like the arc that Harry Kim takes. Like, I think that the criticism that is often leveled at the show that they kind of underserved his character, didn't give him the promotions he was probably due because they were more focused on demoting and then re-promoting Tom Paris, are totally valid. And I would have liked a few more scenes where we see Harry actually get to put it in, but he is so green and so, wet behind the ears at the beginning of the series.
He was stating the obvious again.
Getting conned by Quark in that opening episode, and then by the end, really feels like a capable officer who is like, he's definitely one of my favorite guys on the show. So
we already talked a bunch about Neelix, but that kind of leaves the Doctor in terms of main cast characters. I think my main issue with the Doctor is that he was so intentional about displaying his growth, promoting his growth to everyone around him. It feels like for most people, those parts of themselves are mostly private. You know, you experience a thing, you learn some lessons from it that you can take away and apply toward future moments. And maybe you're fortunate enough to achieve a kind of growth that way. But like the Doctor was so loud and broad and made his growth into other people's experiences or problems that, I mean, you could argue successfully that the Doctor grows most of all, but at what cost to the rest of the crew, I might argue.
Can't you reprogram him or something?
Yeah. Seven and Kes are the two characters that don't span the full range of the show. I thought they did a nice job with Kes's character toward the end.
I like characters on Star Trek who reject Star Trek. And I don't mean the actors. I mean the characters.
Right.
Like Kes by the end was ready to freshen everyone up. She rejected the premise. And I think there's room for that type of character in this universe.
Yeah. And Seven is sort of the opposite of that. She sort of starts rejecting the premise and is persuaded more and more by her crewmates that maybe Star Trek is the way. And it's a great character, and I loved getting to follow up with her in Star Trek Picard. And kind of now that we're done with our Voyager rewatch, I kind of want to go back and do a Star Trek Picard rewatch just for the Seven of it, you know? Like she's such an interesting character, and imagining the, you know, getting back to Earth and then, you know, where we pick up her story in Picard is a fun thing to think about. What happened in those intervening years.
The Stuck Duck asks, the Chakotay 7 thing came out of nowhere. I know that one holodeck episode, but when they were stranded together a few eps later, nothing. Not even a longing look. Also, is it icky that they teased Janeway Chakotay for 7 years only to have him choose her younger, hotter protege? A lot of interesting ideas in this topic.
Hotter is very subjective, you know.
I think part of why the finale didn't quite work was that there was no ramp up to that relationship, that it really did feel out of nowhere in the way the Stuck Duck describes. I like the tension unrealized of a Janeway Chakotay relationship. I mean, these are aspects to many of the great television programs of the last 20 years. And in many of those examples, the eventual reality of that relationship brings about a lesser quality show in the aftermath because that tension is released and gone. So
imagine a Cheers where Sam Malone's bar has a floor littered not with peanut shells, but with the halves of snapped pencils.
Right.
And he never closes the deal with Diane.
I mean, let's not blame Chakotay here.
Sounds great.
Janeway did not want anything to do with him and stated it fairly directly when they were marooned on Planet Bathtub. Right?
Yeah.
So let's not get it twisted.
I mean, and what a tough call for her to make, because I think that she felt the feels, but just felt like her responsibility outweighed her ability to indulge in those feels. And I respect the hell out of that. I wish that they'd drawn a brighter line under that, because I think that that's one of the things that makes her amazing as a captain. Like, Picard dabbled in having a relationship in one episode of TNG, and like, you know, it was like touching a hot pan on the stove. He like pulled his hand right back and was like, no, can't do it. And the idea that Janeway was in this like much more desperate situation, you know, with no shore leave to like get her rocks off, like no way to really take care of her intimacy needs at all. Like she monk like endures this entire experience without many romantic interludes at all. And I think that's like one of the things that makes her an amazing captain to me is like how great of a personal sacrifice that is, because I believe it is a great personal sacrifice.
Right, but it's also one that she chose and she didn't have to make, I contend.
I think that Captain Snoggin the First Officer is the path to a ship falling apart.
I think it's a path to a very interesting season.
Captain Janeway, the USS Voyager. Captain Janeway, the USS Voyager.
All right, Adam, we've talked a lot about the series Star Trek: Voyager, but I think people would be pretty mad at us if we didn't give out our Mount Nuckmores and our Mount Armises for best and worst episodes of the series. I've picked 4 for my Mount Nuckmore, and I feel less sure about this list than I have about lists in years past. I think these are maybe episodes that stuck with me the most as far as my Mount Nuckmore ones. They're ones that I like think back to a ton. Like I was making this list and I was like, man, I should probably like go back and check if I like claimed to like this at the end of the episode in which we talked about them. But like these are the ones that I like think about all the time from Voyager. So here's my list. Meld, which is the one where Tuvok mind melds with Lon Suter. Nemesis, where we entered the Brone Zone.
I take it you're in charge here. Team Leader Brone, 4th Board Defense Contingent. I gotta get a pump.
That's it, get it.
And then a couple of two-parters, Year of Hell and Future's End. Year of Hell, obviously, the time erasure fight, and Future's End, Sarah Silverman, A+.
I think our mountains are very similar. Meld and Year of Hell, for sure. I also thought Timeless was really great, that episode, where we got old Harry Kim working through the timeline to save a frozen Voyager. That was cool.
Yeah.
I thought the Scorpion 2-parter was great.
Yeah, Scorpion ruled.
That was really fun. And maybe an honorary mountain posting would be the one where the Borgs with a big butt was created out of a lab. That was great.
Yeah. Okay. My honorary mention is Flashback, the one where we go back to Star Trek 6 a bunch of times.
Oh, great one. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Mount Armis.
Dank and vile.
Well, one of them is going to be Darkling. You remember that was the one where the Doctor has those contact lenses that turns him evil. And this is a Cass episode too. This was, I don't know, like this Jekyll and hiding of the Doctor. And remember how frizzy his hair was on the side of his head? That was wild. The Thaw is a classic Mount Armis episode, even though it has the great Michael McKean in it. Just, I don't know, like when you describe it as batshit as it is, like it's worth rewatching. It's totally bizarre.
Yeah. But like what makes that hell is like how grating it is, like sonically and visually. It's like an unpleasant episode to watch also.
Yeah.
Let's get out of here.
You got it.
You know what? There was the one where I think a lot of mine are going to involve the Doctor. The one where the Doctor falls in love with a meat person, and then, oh my God, she's beautiful once you take all the loaf off of her. And then they end on the holodeck, like in the convertible at makeout point. That was no good, right? I think those are the ones that come to mind. Maybe you'll energize some more inspiration out of me.
So first one on my Mount Armis is The Fight, which is Chakotay's boxing Vision Quest episode.
Great call. Yeah, that's got to be on there.
That's got to be on there.
Couldn't you have seen like a Chakotay thread where like it starts with the boxing, but then like maybe he goes down to that planet and builds a bathtub for Janeway, and he's like John Matrixing around like logs and shit around. Like, how did Chakotay get so buff?
Yeah.
I want that storyline.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Tattoo is the one where they're like on that like moon and like Chakotay keeps having flashbacks of his father, and it's like one of the most pan flute heavy episodes. I don't remember if I liked any of these or not when we actually watched them, but I like wince when I think about that one, you know?
How about the episode that's like Carrie when Paris falls in love with a ship and the ship wants to kill his girlfriend?
Yeah.
That's not a great one, right?
That feels like it's bad.
Yeah.
Once Upon a Time, the episode where Naomi Wildman spends most of the episode in the holodeck with Flotter and Trevis.
That one for sure. That is a total mudbath episode. Ben, I'm shocked neither of us have named Threshold.
I feel like I like Threshold. I feel like Threshold is on this side of the Mount Nuckmore, Mount Armus Valley for me.
We're gonna need an entirely new episode, an episode of its own for an argument about Threshold, Ben.
Okay. My final entry for my Mount Armus is Real Life, the episode where the doctor has a hollow family that I'll like, think about, it's like a 1950s through a 1980s lens family.
Amazing.
It's like, this is the 90s. Why are you doing an 80s thing about a 50s thing?
God, so many of these are doctor related.
Yeah, the doctor really racked up some all-time cornball episodes. That one where he's like a celebrity musician on a planet.
That's right. He was Opera Man.
Oh, brutal.
Amazing work by Robert Picardo throughout the series. Like,
not his fault.
Getting thankless after thankless after thankless stories. Amazing.
Yeah. And he does really cool work now with the Planetary Society. He's like become a very a charitable guy. I've had a lot of fun going through Mount Nuckmores and Mount Armuses with you, Adam. We got one more segment before we get to our P1s and then our overall series Shimoda's. Why don't we get to that segment right now?
You know, I'm really easy to get along with most of the time. But I don't like bullying, I don't like threats, and I don't like you.
Ben, one final question. The last one we're going to get to on our Voyager series retrospective episode. How stoked are you for Enterprise?
Oh, man, I couldn't be more stoked. I cannot wait. There's a lot about Enterprise that I really like. I will say that I am a little bit sad, and maybe this is telling on myself. I don't know. I really like Picard, and I really like Sisko, and I really like Janeway. Like they are, as the leads of the series, characters that I am terribly fond of. I'm not going to go ahead and rank them right now, but
many people asked us to do that. So
yeah.
If you're hoping for that in this episode, maybe not this time.
Maybe not this time, but I will say that having watched Enterprise, I think I've watched the first 3 seasons of Enterprise, and I have not seen its notorious final episode yet. So maybe I've seen like 3.5 seasons of it or something. But I remember thinking that Bakula was kind of weak as the captain. So that is one thing that I am going into Enterprise with a little bit of trepidation about it. I remember really loving the crew of Enterprise and feeling like yeah, like I love Bakula. I feel like he's great, but maybe he's like not bringing his A game to this part or something. Or maybe it's like underwritten or something. But maybe I'll have a different take on it this time. That's the one thing that I've got some trepidation about.
Yeah, mixed feelings from here too, because at the end of every series, I miss that series. That's happened the last 3 times. Yeah. And Up Ahead is a series I've never seen even a moment of. I am really curious to find out why Enterprise as a series is so often kind of ignored in the conversation. And I know that there are people who really love Enterprise, and I'm not minimizing their many great opinions on the show. But like when you go to a convention or you talk about Star Trek with people, it is often not an actor on the banner.
Right.
Or a great character talked about when you're arguing who the best captains or the best minor characters are. Like, I don't hear that opinion from many places, and this is not an invitation to send me those opinions. I think it is objectively the truth that for some reason, Enterprise the series is not in the firmament of when you think of Star Trek television shows, it's not top 4. And it's not even close. I want to know why that is, and I'm excited to find out.
Yeah. I feel like the uniform doesn't get cosplayed. You don't see the ship represented as much and things.
Yeah,
it's an interesting point. But it's a series that people have a lot of love for, and it's one that I've definitely heard a lot of people say it was getting really great when they kind of unceremoniously canceled it. So
I'm ready to love it. I want to love it. That's what I'm going to say right now. I'm going in with an open mind and an open heart.
I want to love it too. I'm really pumped for it. And I'm really pumped to be watching that like middle era of Trek, is like pre-new Trek, post-old Trek. Kind of. It's like, I feel like that's part of it, is that it's like in its no man's land by itself. And it should be a really interesting time. And it's starting next week. And we have new music for it that our buddy Adam Ragusia has been helping us put together. We actually went to visit the Goose in Tennessee to work on this song. And I guess it'll debut right at the top of the show next week.
Really excited for FODs to hear that.
Adam, let's check what we've got in the P1 inbox for today, huh?
Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
Need a supplemental income. Supplemental income? Supplemental. Supplemental. Yeah, it's extra.
The interest alone could be enough to buy this ship.
The first P1 is from Mom, Dad, Alex, and Honor. It's to Margot. Goes like this.
Last time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
We congratulated our son, your brother, for graduating from medical school. Now we congratulate you on finishing college with a 4.0 in your major. And your major. And your major.
I don't believe this.
We are proud of you and love you. Good luck jaking a shuttlecraft to your new job as just plain simple worker.
I am Chief Miles Edward O'Brien. This is fucking spectacular.
Wow.
So triple 4.0 major is what Margot is?
Check out the big brains on Margot.
I bet Margot doesn't have an answer to this question. Why is the carpet all wet?
Todd.
I don't know, Margot.
Margot's never know the answer to that one.
No, they're always asking that question.
Yeah.
Wow. I hope you are graduating toward a career where you are more than just a plain and simple worker with that kind of experience. Good on you, Margot.
Yeah. And hey, you deserve a vacation after working that hard. That's huge.
Don't let anyone convince you that you can't take some time off between college and a life in the workforce. Yeah. That's bad advice. Anyone telling you that would be bad for your career or whatever, that you need to preserve some sort of continuity between your collegiate work and your work, fuck that. Take a break.
Take a break.
Who knows when you'll get another?
Indeed.
Ben, our second priority 1 message is from Captain Lizoto and the Dith and all the cruisers of DeSoto. It's to Ben and Adam. Their message goes like this. Does a drink with Robert Picardo sound like fun? How about laughing like mad with Denise Crosby? Or perhaps running into BLT and B-Dunks in a turbo lift?
Wow.
Then come join a great group of FODs on Star Trek: The Cruise 2025. First round is on me.
Wow.
Hey, all of these FODs are great and familiar, long-time, good FODs. What are you doing making commercials for the cruise? What are you doing?
Yeah.
This should be a commercial priority 1 message, guys.
It should. First of all, it should be a commercial priority one message. Second of all, it should be coming in from Star Trek The Cruise, and it should just be a commercial.
Yeah.
That we get paid full freight for, and not the heavily discounted rate of a priority one message.
Star Trek The Cruise. I think about it all the time.
Yeah, is 2025 our year, Adam?
Oh, sure. Yeah, let's make it our year. You know what? You convinced me, Captain Lizoto, the Dith, and all the cruisers of DeSoto. I'm there.
Wow, you heard it here first.
Here's what's going to happen. We're not going to tour in 2025 either.
Whoa!
It's just the cruise. Cruise only.
It's going to be a money out year, not a money in year.
They're all money out years.
Well, if you'd like to leave a priority one message on an episode of the show, you can do it. You just go to MaximumFun.org/Jumbotron and set it up, and it'll happen.
Yeah, and with a brand new series coming up, you're going to want to get in there for Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of action in our scheduling calendar, so if you got a specific date, jump on it.
Hey, Ben?
What's that, Adam?
For the entire series of Star Trek Voyager, did you find yourself a drunk Shimoda?
Incredible! Drunk Shimoda! Such a juicy question. I think I gotta go Neelix, and I feel like it's a cop-out because Neelix is written to be the drunk Shimoda of the series. Almost as if the showrunners were like, this show needs like a Shimoda character, but in the main cast. But yeah, he's the silliest. He's having the most fun. Like I feel like setting the hours and hours and hours in the makeup chair aside, isn't Ethan Phillips just having a fucking hoot being on this show?
Gotta believe it.
I respect the hell out of someone that looks like they're having as much fun at work as he is. Like he's either having the greatest time or he's the best actor on the cast by a long shot. So yeah, he's my drunk Shimoda. How about you?
Ben, to me, it's obvious. It's obvious because my nomination for Shimoda of the series never got any better. Never grew in any way. If they grew in any way, it was just more grating. Dr. Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark.
Obviously, the drunk Shimoda of Star Trek Voyager.
Wow.
Neelix got better. Neelix became fun. The Dr. Mark was just consistently out for his own interests.
A little bit creepy.
Yeah, creepy a lot of the time.
Maybe a little bit more than creepy.
Totally self-serving. For a medical professional to be as self-serving as the doctor was, I don't know. Keep him away from me. That's all I got to say.
Go back into your real life holodeck program, buddy. Just stay there.
Yeah, that's what I got, Ben.
Wow. Well, this has been a ton of fun, Adam. What a fun retrospective. What a fun series. I feel like at the end of every Star Trek series, I always have a fear that we're just going to shed listeners because, this was the last one anyone gave a shit about. I felt that when we went to Deep Space Nine, and then again when we went to Voyager, and now as we go to Enterprise. And yet I also have felt like it kind of revitalized our show every time we've switched series. So I am a ball of trepidation and a ball of optimism over here.
That's Benjamin R. Harrison right there, in a nutshell. Our show has continued to grow series after series because I think it has much more to do with you and me than even the subject we're talking about. I hope that trend continues. I expect it to. It's going to be a lot of fun when we start talking about Star Trek Enterprise next week.
I guess we don't really have a game of buttholes. We don't have anything to roll right now.
We'll be back next week to unveil a brand new version of our game toward the end of the premiere episode of Star Trek Enterprise.
And new theme music, who dis? It's going to be a big week. It's coming soon. So with that, we're going to wrap it up for today. Our thanks to all of the generous friends of DeSoto who have supported this journey by going to MaximumFun.org/join. if you like this show and like the idea of continuing with it on into the future, the best way to ensure that is becoming a monthly member at MaximumFun.org/join. There's going to be lots of great bonus content, especially associated with our run of Enterprise coverage. And I'm really excited about that. We got to thank Wynde Priddy, the producer and editor of this show. Got to thank Rob Adler, who runs our social media, and Bill Tilley, our Xindi Wartime consigliere. And we got to thank Nick Ditmore, who made our show art, and the great Anna Magusia, who is hard at work on the next theme song for this show. Of course, Dark Materia, who let us use the Picard song all those years ago. Really appreciate you as well. And with that, we will be back at you next week with a great episode of Star Trek Enterprise and an episode of the Greatest Generation Enterprise that is looking forward, not back.
Make it so.
Maximum Fun, a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported
directly
by you.